then we're off to the races. Then I don't know what's going to happen.
I can't wait.
So Mitch, Black Circle Radio. This is a really cool thing. You describe it in a couple places on the web in a couple different ways, and I'll just read a couple of them. The all vinyl Black Circle Radio takes you back to the roots of radio. Take comfort in the old, and you may just learn something new. That's a wonder. That's a poetic turn of phrase, my friend. And then
Thanks.
Another one. I love this too. It's a little longer, but Black Circle Radio is a technological and cultural history lesson for anyone willing to learn about a once enthralling and artistic world, simplified and cast aside by contemporary commercialism. Tune in to the masterclass of classic rock radio to read between the lines and dig up the dirt that contains the real treasures of a forsaken era, presented on the superior audio transcript vinyl. And so I want to hone in on one thing there to start with, at least. You say all vinyl radio since 2009, and you truly mean it. Everything that isn't you or others talking live is played from vinyl, ad spots, music, everything.
Yeah. And with that second, the second one that you read, the only thing that's really changed out of that, because we've been doing this since 2009, and the word classic rock doesn't fit in that description anymore, really at all. Like, we're not a classic rock show. We're not, it's not just about the, I do think that it's still some sort of a sonic history lesson, but it's not like me expressing, I'm not a history teacher, and I'm not an expert. I'm not a jazz scholar. I'm not a classic rock scholar. So I try really hard to let the music express the messaging, and then kind of what I hope is facilitate an internal conversation with oneself about what is being heard and how it's being heard. Are you actually listening? And so instead of just hearing the music, are you listening to the music? And there's a big difference. The hands-on approach and learning about what this medium can do and why it is so important on so many levels has been a real learning experience and journey. And so, like, with you, when you say like literally all vinyl, yeah, and that's because I couldn't sit still, Nicholas. Like, I had to keep doing things. And so the like the music beds in the program, that's what this is here, and that's just a standard clear polycarbonate. And I hand cut on, I have a 1949 Reco cut mono lathe with a Presto 1C cutting head. And I actually made a really good trade, and Reco cut number 2 arrived just yesterday. So that would have been August 26th, 2020. The grand arrival, new member of the family. But so I cut the music beds, and the reason for that was because I ran into an issue when I was uploading to Mixcloud, where the program gets hosted because of copyright. I was actually getting flagged for copyright infringement on a platform that is built for DJs to upload original programming, because I can't podcast my show because of copyright, because a podcast is considered download. And can't download people's music, the hashtag Napster. And like the whole thing was like, okay, fine, let's do it ourselves then. I'm not having another copyright infringement. And so that's what, so right there is an example of what you'd hear. And there's, I mean, a whole bunch of different ones, depending on the mood of the show.
Like, that's your friend playing that music. Sometimes you're on bass, and you literally cut that record a few feet away from where you're sitting.
Yeah, Jordan Price is his name, Arc of All on Instagram.
Yeah,
and
that's so cool.
He owns he's a brick and mortar record store owner in Bay City, Michigan, called the Electric Kitsch. And so him and I he's the one that started the radio show with me in 2009. He was the very first co-host. And he's my spiritual advisor, my musical sensei. all of the above. And so we work hand in hand every day on this stuff. And so now so there you go. You're hearing Arc of All cut, and this is what you would hear. Actually, what you're hearing right now it is exactly what you would hear. This is Y'all Vinyl since 2009, Black Circle Radio. You're tuned in. Proud to have Nicholas here from LTA, Linear Tube Audio, on the program. So there's like an example of what it would sound like.
It makes me feel warm and fuzzy all over just hearing that. You know, it puts me in a good place because I've heard it so many times. I've heard you say that and do that so many times. But yeah, I mean, that's really cool. It's a little bit mother. You know, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention, right? You know, you were hitting these copyright issues, and you said, "Screw it, I'm just gonna do it all myself."
Yeah, and I thought it was also important. When I don't know where all this culminated, honestly. You know, it was just like ideas that I allowed to come to fruition, and just decided not to stop the idea. And obviously, there's so much wrapped into all of this, but just like the idea of what is the program and how does the program go together. Even down to ad spots, donor spots, because we're non-commercial formatted. But there's a pool. I have a really great supporting team, not just endorsers and sponsors, but I mean the support of my wife Debra, who's a co-host, and our engineers, and the team is amazing. Rory and Todd and Bernard and Johnny and Cadence and Easy Action, and the list goes on. And it's pretty cool to hear these different voices talk about the endorsers of the show, and then I get to cut them. So it's
collection anytime.
There's
your journey, your terms, their expertise. HarborHospiceMI.org.
So that's my wife.
Fingerprints, cat hair, spilled drinks, remnants of a now forgotten social session. Groove Washer creates vinyl record cleaning products that keep your music sounding groovy every day and every night, no matter the current state of its audience. Groove Washer is a proud supporter of Black Circle Radio and its all vinyl radio programming.
I'll invoice Groove Washer separately for that. You can feel free to as well.
Exactly. Right. Let me know where to send the invoice. Well, and who is that in your crew that does that spot? Because if he's not doing spots for other people, he's missing out on an opportunity. His voice is fantastic.
That's Todd behind the board, one of my very close friends, and also I'd call him, a life mentor. He's an amazing man, and he has done more voiceover work and all that. His voice is just nuts. I want him to read me everything.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
But yeah, so in a nutshell, and that's all outside of the music, but that's kind of my mind, where it goes, and that's what we have right now with Black Circle Radio.
You're a DJ. I guess,
yeah.
Is that what you call yourself still in 2020? But what role does radio and your version of radio have to play in all of this?
So the independent radio scene is a groovy place. And there are a lot of independent, I would call like disc jockeys, they have their setup in their house, just like, and they're putting programming out, and sometimes they're affiliated with a local low watt, low power FM station, which are nonprofit formatted. Like that's where I am here. My programming is on Muskegon 100.9 WFFRLP every Monday. Like that's those local community stations are back. There's a panel discussion on my YouTube page from the Making Vinyl Conference in Detroit, where I speak about this kind of stuff. But in short, the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, for a span of about like roughly 20 years, they shut down all new licenses for broadcast radio stations. So the only way you could like get a station was to buy one. Hence, that's why you have the iHeartMedia shell of hatred across the United States. But that was all set up that way intentionally, right? And it was to control message, and that's exactly what they did, and it worked. However, they reopened it up, but it was only for stations under 200 watts. And so you're looking at a radius. Yeah, you're looking at a radius on a clear day of like what? I mean, 20 miles, 15, 20 miles radius of that broadcast, the physical transmission. And but when they opened that up, a lot of communities across the entire nation, you just saw these. You got to hear the sound of the city you were in if you choose to find it. It's difficult to find it though, because some cities are very large. And but that has been pretty unique in that sense, because there's a lot of other DJs like myself that are using that same model of like working to get their voice over the FM transmissions. I think that's a funny thing. Like, why do DJs in 2020, with everything that we can do online, what is that drive to, like, that need, again, speaking for myself, to be broadcast live over a tower? And I think it's because we're attracted to electricity. We want to be by power. We want to feel physical energy. And there's a pulse when you're working with that stuff, because it can kill you. Like you know,
right, literally,
like,
yeah.
Yeah. And well, it's a rush.
I agree with you. But I also think we were talking about the streaming services are lazy.
Yeah.
Here's real talk. Humans are lazy. All humans are lazy. And, there's a built-in audience to terrestrial radio, because a lot of people, myself included, right? I bought a new car a few years ago. It came with free Sirius. The free Sirius just, lapsed. And so now I'm stuck with two options, right? The regular FM or AM radio and whatever I dial up on my phone. And dialing stuff up on my phone takes time and energy. And so I can just press the radio button and I have people talking or music playing, and that's very appealing. And, as a broadcaster, in some ways you go where the audience is. And I think there's a real connection that you have with people, right? I mean, I remember when I grew up in small town, rural Virginia, and then I went to school in New York City, and then I would, travel around upstate, and, and I remember thinking, I just don't know what these people around me are thinking, as much as I know, sort of, I had a comfort level of just knowing where people were coming from in my hometown, right? Because I had spent, I'd grown up there. And so it was sort of a part of me, I was a part of them. And so there's a real sort of, visceral, unspoken, mental connection that you have when you're talking to people that are within a certain range. And that's not to discount that. I can imagine, and sort of the joy of what we're doing now, right? We're talking sometime in the next week or so, I'm gonna upload this conversation to the internet on YouTube, and then we'll get comments and likes and viewers from literally all over the world, and that's a whole different power. Yes.
And I like that you said about rural, because I grew up very rural too, in a village of 400 people, and we didn't get internet until, we got dial-up, I think, when I was a senior in high school, and so that would have been like 2005, is like when the lines finally were run there.
It's still a problem in lots of places, rural internet access. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And, but what's cool about FM, in my opinion, is accessibility, because just like records, like, people will give them to you. Like, there you go. There is music, there's discovery, and a clock radio for example, can be found for $0.25 or for free anywhere, and the FM airwaves are free. Like, there you are. And so that's an important tool to know that if there is no cell phone, you can't even spell cell phone. Like, it doesn't, you can have, or internet, it doesn't matter. Like, because the internet, my mind is baffled, Nicholas. It's baffled that for some reason I feel that we have, as a human race in the United States, an assumption that nothing existed before the internet, other than what we deem as like nostalgia or sweet or romanticized. It is, look at the vacuum tubes. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
on your little
come
LCA MZ3 over there. Yeah.
MZ3, shout out. Yeah. Running through the corner horns.
Yeah.
It's slams.
We'll get to the gear.
We'll talk about it. Yeah. Sorry. But like vacuum tubes, like you can't even, they're not allowed to even be manufactured in the United States based on this false conception of rooted in like the villainizing of mercury, the like the compound, like all these things I see are like trying to delete history and to make like this new thing, which is the internet. And I think to some extent it's kind of working. And it's really, really weird to me. That's where I'm going to end this rant. Thanks for letting me go on that tangent. But yeah, that is why FM is so important to me, because it is, Nikolai Tesla. There you go.
There you go. We end it. And well, it's funny because there is like we talked about, there is an ease to FM, right? You know, you've got a clock radio, you go in your car, it just comes on. You've got the right or wrong fillings in your teeth, you know, sometimes it'll pick it up. And you know, like, and then there's the internet side, and you know, everybody talks about how that's easy and everything, but honestly, I mean, it's a little bit complicated to listen to your show on the internet, right? If you compare it to just, you know, if you happen to be within, you know, however many miles of that broadcasting tower and turning on a radio and tuning it to the right thing.
It's very cumbersome.
Which you could do by mistake, right? You have to seek out your program and then, you know, either sign up on Mixcloud or, you know, whatever. So, or, you know, tune into the broadcast on the internet. So it's just, it's an interesting, you know, dilemma, I guess, where you are able to reach more people, but it is harder to reach them. We talked about, you know, in the very beginning, we talked about the description of your show. It included classic radio, but I had pulled that from an old place, and it's not just classic rock. You know, it's really, I mean, I've described myself before as a musical omnivore, and your show actually takes that and makes it look like it's a puny phrase, because, you know, you have introduced me to such craziness through your show that, you know, it's hard to call myself that when there's things like your show out there. And I know there's a lot of people in our world that are like that. Lots of the people that I talk to, when I talk to people and I'm trying to help them navigate the world of gear, and, you know, I say, well, tell me about the music you listen to. 90% of the people, nobody says, I only listen to X, or it's almost always people are, you know what, I listen to a huge mix. I listen to classic rock, but I also listen to jazz, and I listen to some new stuff because, you know, my daughter or son, you know, brings it in, and I want to, you know, keep up with what's going on. And I listen to, you know, there's the classic, you know, I listen to everything but country, or oftentimes I listen to everything but rap. You know, we won't get into a political thing here on the. I
think we've touched on those things a little bit during this conversation.
So all that to say that there are people that I think would be interested in, I would encourage everyone watching this to check out Black Circle Radio. How can people listen to Black Circle Radio?
It's funny, like you can listen to Black Circle Radio at blackcircleradio.com, at mixcloud.com/Black Circle Radio. That's it. Or you can dial in on Muskegon 100.9, locally on the FM airwaves, or Muskegon Radio sorradio.com, sorradio.org. One thing that I would recommend your viewers to do is to download the TuneIn app, because the TuneIn app is made to be the internet's bridge to the FM radio station and the FM messaging. So on TuneIn is where you can pick up the digital output stream from essentially any station you want. Another really cool one that's kind of fun to use, it's like, I like it a lot actually, is called Radio Garden, and it's a browser based. It works best on browser, but it's like Google Earth, and you can like spin it, like the globe spins and zooming
cool.
in
So
and out,
like
and you can see all these
geography.
Yeah, and it's just called Radio Garden, and it's highlighting stations across the world, which is neat to explore. I feel it's kind of like the internet's way of Radio Garden I'm speaking of. It's like the internet version of sitting in front of your AM console
I was thinking
and then
the same thing.
picking something up from Brazil, so that's a really cool site too. But you can hear, but again, you go to Radio Garden, you can't click on Black Circle Radio. You'd have to know that I am broadcasting live on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's when I hit go. And that's 2 hours. So and sometimes I forget to upload the show afterwards, or sometimes it takes a month. So it's very live recording, and that's how it's meant to be, though. And I'm adjusting slowly to the internet stuff and making it more accessible. But I'm also very, very aware of my boundaries as a broadcaster. And so I have to focus on my community and who I can't let the local FM listener down, because I am an FM based, non-commercial formatted program. And so that comes first.
Yeah, and there is something cool about, and you talked about the live streaming, and I've watched a lot of live streams, and I've done it in all ways, right? Where you're before the pandemic, watching a band play a live show right then that's being simulcast, and then you are then watching it with, thousands of other people across the world. And I've then watched recordings of those same broadcasts, right? But later, and I'm watching it myself, and that's not as fun, right? It's the same exact content. It's a live show played by a band that I love, but I know viscerally that it's not live, and I'm not watching it happen, and there aren't thousands of people who I don't know and will never see, but still, I know they're not there. And then because of the pandemic, I've done a lot of sort of a mix between the two. Of a band will play a archived show and sort of simulcast it, and like on every Thursday night, or every there's live music that you can watch, every single night with a cohort, with your fan group cohort. And that is a great experience, right? What's today? Thursday. On Tuesday, I did that, and we watched an archive show that was being simulcast, and me and a couple friends were texting the whole time.
Exactly.
And that's,
you're having a party.
Something really, really. One guy was in Atlanta, another guy was in Portland. Here I am in DC, and it was super cool. And so I totally get what you're saying about there's something to the live aspect of your show.
Thank you. Yeah, it's important to me, because we as humans live in the moment, right? We don't live in the past. Like, what we do this instant is the impact. And so the live thing is, all humans can relate to it because we live live.
Exactly. And given the current, there's lots of, this is a weird time, and there's a whole bunch of shit going on, and you are keeping up with that. You're the Black Lives Matter, over your right shoulder. You're talking about things and engaging with things in real time on your show, and that's an important piece of the live thing too. If you hear it a month later, it might still be interesting, but it's less in the moment. Yep,
I agree. Yep. Absolutely. And speaking, by the way, thanks for bringing up the Black Lives Matter sign. Just to go on to like encapsulate and wrap up the local FM broadcasting and how I feel about it, right, is that is a space where voices can be amplified, right? That's what you're doing, is you're amplifying a signal. And on community radio, you don't get to dictate as a listener who you're hearing. Like you can turn the dial, right? But you can't just like you can't shut that person off. It's a different for example, in a local doctor's office or any store, a mechanic shop, whatever. Those places have radios on, and they play it over because they don't want ads, and they don't want to be interrupted by the like Spotify ads or whatever they are.
Please subscribe to Pandora, right? Yeah.
And so exactly, they don't want to pay for it, and so then you'll have your radio on. Well, once that's on, and you're during the day and you're working, people don't change the station because you're working, and so you can't help but soak in messaging and different voices and different experiences that way. And so one thing that I'm extremely proud of on the station I'm on here in Muskegon is a show that actually airs on Sundays. And that's called This Is the Situation. It's hosted by Bernard Stewart, Big Brother B. And it's thisisthesituation.com and is also on all major podcast platforms, but also an FM radio DJ. And if he, in my opinion, for Muskegon, where I live, he is the finger on the pulse. He is who you listen to in an accessible and understandable way when it comes to anything regarding Black Lives Matter. And having those local trusted voices that you can then have real conversation with, you can follow up with easily because they're your neighbor. That kind of stuff is the importance of FM.